Hey, everybody. We're diving into the world of contact center and the intersection of AI and customer experience with real industry legend and innovator, Martin Taylor of Content Guru. Martin, how are you?
Great, thanks, Evan.
Well, good to see you again. It's been a while. So let's start from the top. For those who may not be familiar, what's the story behind Content Guru?
Yeah, well, Content Guru is in the CX technology space. So we came from Cloud Contact Center, CCaaS, and actually our history goes back 30 years to
Mm.
Redwood Technologies. Yeah. So before Contact Center, we were all about TV voting. So wherever there was this reality TV wave sweeping through, Big Brother, Idol, X Factor, and all those sorts of things, then we would be following along in the networks, taking all the votes and doing all the competitions around those shows.
Yeah, I remember them well. Good times. And so you've been around this space before it was mainstream, before certainly CCAS was a term of art. So what's your perspective? Is now the most exciting time in the industry? And what are some of the uh, trends and shifts you're seeing out there?
Yeah, I think we're at a real kind of transformative point in the CX and CCAS world now. It's a kind of evolutionary watershed, really, where I think we move from, I suppose, things that have evolved out of call centers
Mm,
into this whole wider customer experience space. It's not just omni-channel, but omni-data, omni-automation.
mm.
So there's never been a more exciting time to be in this CX space.
And what are your customers telling you about how they're approaching CX and cloud communications? What are they saying? What are their ambitions, goals, and what's the state of the union, as it were, with the
Yeah,
customers you're
well, I
talking
guess
to?
the modern era, I suppose, could be seen to have started in COVID, so 5 years
Mm,
back now. And I think all face-to-face contact ceased, really, didn't it? And so a lot more emphasis went into the customer experience that could be delivered digitally and through the contact center. And generally, everything that would have been a shop window or a door or a counter has suddenly moved behind a technology layer. And so that put a lot more emphasis on improving that customer experience in order to derive competitive advantage and differentiate one provider from another. Because actually, if you look at a lot of the industries we're in, take insurance, for example, it is fairly much similar products on offer. You've got an insurance policy, you pay a premium, there's an excess. So other than whether the insurer will pay out if something goes wrong, the rest of it's down to
mm,
the
mm.
cost and then what kind of experience do you get. So clearly, if you can use customer experience technologies in order to have a better experience and deliver it more efficiently, then that's typically where people have wanted to go. And I think in the last year or two, there's a heavy emphasis on more intelligent automation now, so that you can provide this very personalized experience in a much more efficient way than was ever possible before. And if you think about what was a contact center, it was a gathering of front office people in a location where data, information, and skills could
Mm.
be shared and optimized. So it's the original optimized work environment, just now being amped up and taken to another level.
Yeah, reset. So AI is reshaping everything, not just employee productivity, chatbot, sentiment analysis, on and on and on. So specifically, how do you guys integrate AI into your platform, and what's your approach there? Everyone seems to have a different, unique philosophy, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. So we obviously come from having our CCaaS platform, Storm. It's a CPaaS platform, really, for which CCaaS has for several years now been like the major application. So we come from having that cloud platform layer, and obviously there we are working in an omni-channel environment. It's voice, it's all the digital channels, chat, email, socials, Internet of Things increasingly. So you've got all of that data coming in together. And of course, we look at how do you do AI? Well, it all starts with the data discovery, validation, deployment. So you're in the environment already to do the AI. So we obviously develop some AI tools ourselves, so for example around retrieval augmented generation. But in terms of the actual engines, large language models, small language models, large vision models, you've got translation models, etc. Those are typically made by numerous other vendors, developers, companies, and organizations of all shapes and sizes. Our
Mm,
role really at this platform layer is to orchestrate those, so bring them together so that when a customer of ours has a CX application they would need to put together, that we will find the best AI engines, normally plural, to support the use case. So it may be that they need a particular large language model, could be they need a particular speech to text natural language processor. It might be that they need an image recognizer of some kind, or to work with specific spoken languages. So our role is doing the horizon scanning, finding the best components, and then surfacing those up with our tools so that they're readily accessible. So our
mm,
customer generally doesn't want to become some kind of AI scientist and kind of researcher. They just want the best tech that's out there, deployable in a kind of easy to use way through low code, no code tools such as we provide, with all of the assurance and the availability and the security that goes around a trusted platform such as ours. So that's really our
it-
role. It's an orchestrator.
got it. And as you orchestrate increasingly AI agents and virtual agents and agentic architectures, I mean, what do you see the role of the human agent in this future? How is it evolving and where is it today?
Yeah. So we always see there's going to be a role for the human. Humans
Hmm,
are what create
that's good
trust.
to hear.
Yeah. We'll all have something to do in the future. So we see the human agent sitting atop a pyramid, really. So they're at the apex. And then below them are numerous layers of automation. So the human agent is being fed with information about what's going on, who this person is, what they want, what to say next, surfacing knowledge management articles,
Mm,
uh, then everything's supported around them. We like to talk of before, during, and after an interaction. So you're a human agent at the top of this pyramid, kind of sitting there controlling it all. Uh, Maybe someone's entering into an interaction with our organization. Maybe beforehand, there's NLP, for example, it's ask them what it is that they're contacting us about. They could be on a voice or any other of the written digital channels. So we're segmenting. Perhaps we're able to automate a lot of those inquiries. Others we're going to prepare. Perhaps we'll send a form to complete on your mobile screen, and they'll deliver that extra information with the interaction. That's then surfaced up to this human agent, and they're only going to be receiving the cases that really require their attention. The rest has been dealt with at these other layers in the pyramid. And then we're surfacing up what they need to know. There's live sentiment going on there, how to improve this experience yet further. Perhaps everything is being transcribed for them. The forms are being filled in that they're normally having to type all this stuff into. They're relaxing, concentrating, engaging with the consumer, citizen, patient, whatever role the individual is coming in as, and they're delivering that great experience. And all of the hard stuff, the typing, the data entry, that's all being handled for them. And then, of course, after the interaction's over, a lot of what's being considered the traditional post-contact activity, the wrap, that's largely being taken care of as well. And even down to things like the CSAT to gauge
mm,
the satisfaction levels, preparing the quality management, the audit, uh, flagging up to a supervisor, letting the agent know how it went. So everyone wants to improve their game, and they don't necessarily just want to wait till the end of the month when some kind of manager comes down like a ton of bricks on them. They want to know kind of interaction by interaction how to improve things, optimize them. Maybe it's getting to the end of their shift and their energy levels are flagging, and they're being made aware of this fact, and just trying to kind of up things a bit to get through to the end of the session. So I'm envisaging this much more supportive environment. Rather than just being monitored, you're being truly supported by the tech.
Brilliant. Well, that's something we can all get behind. You mentioned omni-channel a couple of times. So many channels. It's amazing, overwhelming to say the least for the customer's journey, and not just, of course, the usual voice and messaging, but we've got video and web chats and apps are increasingly channels, and on, RCS. How do you support all of these channels and make it seamless for the customer, not to be
Yeah.
overwhelmed?
So customers want channel choice
Mm.
nowadays. So if you think of the first stage of going digital transformation, it was all about channel shift. So typically it was seen through the lens of cost saving. So an agent interaction costs me this much. I want to maybe hide the phone number and make them go through this potentially tortuous web process. So that's potentially good if you are the provider of that service and you're just focused on reducing those immediate costs. Perhaps it's not so great for improving your CSAT or the customer loyalty. So we're seeing consistently something like 10% uplift in CSAT where channel choice is offered. So channel choice means meeting the consumer, citizen, patient on their own terms. So different people use different types of interaction mechanisms at different times for different purposes. So sometimes we just want to check something, check a balance or something like that. We're not going to expect to have to speak to a person to do that. And the objective is to get the information quickly and then move on with whatever else needs doing that day. Sometimes it's going to be a complex, stroke urgent, emotional type of interaction, and the human voice is what we're looking for. And specifically, we want to talk to a human person as well because this is so
Mm.
complex or emotive. So it's about presenting the right channel at the right time in the right situation. And I don't think we want to lay them all out there. Why don't you contact us through all these 10, 15 mechanisms? However, I did see a stat last week that the average interaction uses 2.4 channels now. So during a single
Wow.
interaction. So maybe I've called up on my mobile. I've spoken to say what it is that I want. We've then categorized, the organization has categorized my inquiry. I'm told that to wait on the line, and I've been sent an SMS message with a link in it. I click on that link. I'm then filling in a form, perhaps name and address details, and then sending that form in. So that's being submitted then with the call, and that information is coming through to the agent with the call delivery. So we've used three mechanisms right there in a relatively straightforward interaction. I think the key is to make it very simple for the user so that they're not having to consciously think about navigating through the sort of sandbars of all these channels and you're adding to their stress. We want to make life easy for them, even if it makes it a little bit more complicated for the organization in order to service them in this convenient way.
Yeah, well said. You have so many customers and partners, deployments, any success stories or anecdotes, customer stories that kind of capture what Content Guru is all about?
Yeah, I mean, we like to focus on customers using some of the latest tech, of course, because that's always more exciting. So one I like is called Together. So they're a financial services organization. They make loans to property developers. So they're quite big
Mm.
loans. So you're always going to have a spoken dialogue because you're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars per loan. So the person at the front end, the agent, would have this conversation, and then they would need to then talk to someone in the back office, who's the underwriter, who then approves whether the loan is going to happen or not. So the goal there was to optimize that interaction and try and take some stages out of it. So we've used transcription and summarization primarily to try and kind of eat into this long back and forth process between the customer and the agent and the back office underwriters. So what we do now is we automatically transcribe and categorize the information from that initial customer interaction. They call it an assessment call. And then we drop that into various customized assessment templates to categorize the information into applicant case notes. But normally the contact center agent would have had to create those case notes. So those are then passed straight to the underwriting team for approval. So gains there is we cut the average handle time, that favorite contact center stat, by 50%. And also the wrap time for that after call work, we've taken 275 seconds out of that. So it means, we're saving 6 minutes per interaction. And then the verification process that happens after that, we're saving 9 minutes. So they're quite simply able to get through more work in a day without adding to their user base. So that's what I love from financial sector. Government has also got some great use cases. So in the UK, we have a kind of national DMV. We call it the DVLA, the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency. So everything to do with vehicle licensing, or down to license plates, or your actual driver's license, medicals on drivers, all of that sort of thing. So the presumption there before was this is all about voice. So you'd go in at the top of the pyramid, probably after waiting a while, you'd talk to someone and you'd work through what it is that you want to do. So what we've done with the DVLA is we've put in not just a new cloud contact center, but we've also replaced what was a quite derided chatbot with an AI-driven one, which is just fantastically better. So the chat is quicker, and we've introduced, working up that pyramid idea again, more and more use cases that are steadily more complex. So now over 10,000 chat sessions a day are being completed in the chat. So it's trimmed out something like 30%, or maybe even slightly more than 30% of all the call traffic by directing these cases into the chatbots. And every month or so, we're adding a new use case or two into that chatbot. So that has also then freed up the human agents who are actually there on the phone to deal with the even more complex cases. So those are handled quicker, and then 300,000 plus a month are diverted, and successfully so, into the chatbot. And that's actually changed not just the perception of the DVLA, but also what it's like to work there. So of course, if we think of automation and AI, there's always this skepticism around what does this mean for the worker. Well, in the case of the DVLA, we used to have a political sitcom here that was very popular called Yes, Prime Minister.
Oh, good show. I remember.
Yeah, it was excellent. There was a character called Bernard Woolley. He was the principal private secretary or something to the Prime Minister. And he was speculating as to something was going to go really badly wrong with this new policy. And I'm going to get sent to the DVLA in Swansea. This was sort of civil service death. Whereas now they're polling not just ahead of their directorate, the Department for Transport, but ahead of the whole civil service as a place to work. So that's almost a kind of unexpected outcome, but it's a great place to work now, as well as it's processing a lot more inquiries a lot more efficiently.
Marketing is a puzzle. You can either give into the confusion or learn to love the solve. On the Axiom's Real Talk About Marketing podcast, guests like Aaron Schaefer of GM share how to manage challenges.
Make sure that you're not fixed in terms of what you're thinking about. The team's going to change. The way teams operate are going to change. COVID was a great example of that. The industry is going to change. Are cookies going away or not? That was another great example of that. And so how do you continue to evolve as the space evolves?
Guests from HP, The Trade Desk, and Databricks share thoughts on today's marketing landscape. Find Real Talk About Marketing on YouTube, Axiom.com, or wherever you hear podcasts.
What a fun story. Very cool. I'm going to go rewatch some of those old episodes. It's good times.
Yeah, I know. It's timeless.
Indeed. So the contact center space, as you know, is on fire. It's probably 10 times bigger than it was a few years ago. I think you and all your peers seem to be doing phenomenally well, growing. Sort of this rising tide is all boats. But you do have quite a few big tech competitors. I won't call out, but very large global companies diving into this space. How do you see that? There's plenty of room for you and all the other players in this space? And how do you navigate this world of the tech giants getting all of a sudden interested in CX and beyond?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's an attractive space because it's high value. The customers tend to stay a long time. 10 plus years is
Wow.
fairly normal. Margins are good if you look at it as a business. So why would you not want to be there? Well, why you might not want to be there is that it's hard to do. So it's hard to get this stuff right. It's a very unforgiving environment. And I think particularly if, like us, like Content Guru, you focus on the kind of higher end of the market, the large enterprise, the government, and the requirements of reliability, security, and actually the sheer complexity of what you need to do is off-putting. It doesn't lend itself to kind of stamping out millions of them. These are long consultative engagements that haven't historically suited the kind of scaling that some of these very large tech companies go for. So I see that they will have the most influence probably in the kind of small seat count, SMB type businesses up to mid-scale, where the requirements are fairly standardized and it lends itself more to almost a kind of self-service ordering type process. Whereas I think if we look at some of the kind of things we do, and getting through the FedRAMP High, that was 421, I think it is, separate security procedures that all have to be tested, independently accredited. And even things like SOC 2 Type 2, it's continually assessed. That's hard. And they're not table stakes, but these are expected standards at the higher end of the market. Things like PCI DSS level 1 to take the payments securely. Again, that's non-trivial, and you've got to keep it up once you've got it. So I think it's the complexity and the lack of any tolerance for things going wrong that will be the barriers to entry to these markets. We're expected to deliver a 99.999% SLA just generally. But in our emergency services practice, we're talking about a 100% SLA. We run a platform called Storm ESP for those what we call blue light customers. So we're doing police. Every emergency ambulance call in the UK, for example, goes through the Storm ESP platform to find the best available call handler anywhere in the country to take that call and dispatch the resource from local to where the requirement is. So I think it's a case that commoditization, as ever, will build from the bottom. But I think there's always going to be a place for specialist integrators and people who are going to put together not just the technology, but the layer over the technology, the systems integrators, the consultancies. There's plenty of room in the market to play because it's an expanding market. Because if you think about it, we're replacing more and more functions that would have been provided by other parts of the organizations who are our customers. I was at a dinner last week with a big UK local government customer. we were at a conference and they got placed at our table. I wasn't expecting to meet our actual customer there. And these were some people from that customer who I'd never met before, and they'd barely heard of us either. And it turns out that their whole function, which is to do with social care, looking after old people in the home, or perhaps putting them into care homes, that's now being merged into the contact center team and environment. And then a lot of what they're doing is now going to feed into our platform using Internet of Things devices and so on to create services that aren't even traditional CX, but they're leveraging those technologies that the customer has in place, and they know that that is the place to scale some of this exciting IoT stuff that's only really been proven out at a smaller scale level or in pilot type environments so far, to bring those to the mass scale, to plumb them in with all the relevant systems of record, other information systems that are specialized to those areas. So the scope of what goes into this new front office is just ever increasing. So there will not be anytime soon a shortage of things to do.
Absolutely. And speaking of things to do, you're a global concern. You have deployments across every continent. It seems like AI and Gen AI are purpose built for, multiple languages, dialects, translation, and all those services that multinational enterprises need across regions. That must be a huge opportunity for you as well.
Yeah, it is. So again, another of the great features of AI is speech to text. It's great for doing all the transcription, but once you've got that transcription, you can, for example, translate it as well. So we are doing a pilot for the UK National Health Service around real-time language translation. So again, the use case there is to supplement, augment the human translator. So a human translator has a high cost, but you've also got an agent that's tied up for several minutes while they find the translator, and then they have to stay on the line through what is a very long call, even if the issue that they're dealing with is quite a straightforward one. So we developed a front end, which is kind of like a walkie-talkie. So you speak one language, it comes out another. They speak their language, it comes out back in your language. And then we produce simultaneous transcriptions of the spoken languages and the translation. And then, of course, you've got the call recording there as well. So that's great. But obviously, if you then apply that to a highly sensitive environment like healthcare, particularly this is urgent healthcare as well. It's not just calling the family doctor or whatever. This is something's wrong. You're calling an urgent care line. It's got to be safer than waiting and talking through the human translator. So that's not just plug it in, let's see how it goes. We have test scripts, test actors, a pre-alpha stage, an alpha stage, then working through to limited beta using lower risk patients or service users. Maybe they've got dental problems, for example, something you're not likely to die of immediately. And then we kind of progress up to a full live implementation. So it's not just for the multinationals, though they're very important as well. It's also just serving diverse communities within a multinational environment such as London. So if you look at the London healthcare language use case, it's like a pie chart. There is no kind of single language. We've got the global language, English, what we invented sometime
Which version?
back.
Yes.
Exactly. So you've got Arabic, is many dialects of Arabic. You've got the Indian subcontinent languages, and something like Bengali that then has a number of sub-dialects depending on which bit of the Bengali sphere the speaker is from. You've got all the European languages, the Eastern European languages. As the Western Europeans tend to have a good stab at speaking English anyway, so we're not worrying so much about those, which is a shame because those are the best of the translation engines. So we're continually working through, and again, that's the multi-engine environment in order to be able to tackle Hash 2 or something, and how are we going to do that? So we're searching around always to find the best engine fit for applications like translation.
Amazing. So I'm almost reluctant to ask what's next. You're sort of living in the future already in many ways, but what emerging tech trends or technologies are you excited about as you look forward to the rest
Yeah,
of this year and next?
well, one thing that I've been finding in recent months is actually how useful small language models are. So
Mm,
obviously, a lot of the focus has been on large language models, but yeah, we've been finding actually getting a good small language model and then applying it with retrieval augmented generation means you're getting a very nice tight outcome, cutting out the possibility of hallucination.
mm,
And that's been enabling us to work in some quite difficult environments, like the NHS 111 service in London, for example. So the presumption before was you wait in a queue and then you'll talk to a human, but a human behaving in a robot-like way, going through a kind of flowchart algorithm, a bit like a Visio flowchart.
mm.
Instead, at the top of a call, you're asked why you're calling, and then we developed a small language model there and a retrieval augmented generation grid that drops you into one of 180 or so categories. And depending on that category, you can be not just categorized and streamed off in different directions, but also prioritized. So I'd, when we set out on that project, I'd assumed it was a large language model type of project, but it turned into a hugely successful small language model, and we've been able to roll it out really without any problems. We're now working on some quite complex multi-categorization work within that program. So it's some of what I see coming is that kind of multi-model deployment, really.
Mm.
And that's why I think I'm glad we went with our orchestration way of doing things, because there is no one AI engine maker that's got the lot. And that will decreasingly be the case in the future. I mean, new models and providers are popping up the whole time. And whoever's going to be the leader in 10 years, if there is a leader, they might not even have started the business yet. They're probably in their college dorm room, kind of working out how to duck their next exams.
Yeah, really fun, fit for purpose. It's really the key. Well, really enjoyed our chat. I learned a lot as always. Thanks, Martin, for joining.
Absolute
Appreciate
pleasure.
all the insight, and thanks everyone for listening, watching, sharing, and be sure to check out our new TV show at techimpact.tv, now on Fox Business and Bloomberg Weekly. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks, Martin.
Pleasure. Bye.